Hello, it's Alex here with Paragon Performance. Today we're going to be installing one of our Paragon Performance carbon fiber steering wheels. We've got two options to choose from, one in suede and in leather. We're going to be installing the suede one in our car. Let's get to it. So to start out, we gotta get into the front here. So we gotta access the battery. To do that, we gotta pull these side panels out. They generally come out pretty easy by hand. And then pull this big panel up. Just got a couple clips here on the sides. Couple clips here around the back. Should be able to lift it up and pull that out. So we're just going to disconnect the negative terminal here. We're doing this because you have to mess with the airbag while you are playing with or swapping out the steering wheel. So this is a safety precaution. This vehicle does not have a fuse for the airbag. So per like service information, it is disconnect the battery, and then we need to wait for about 10 minutes, it says, and then we can begin with the airbag. All right, so we disconnected the battery. So you can't open your door. You're gonna have to pull the lever down inside to do that. We've waited about 25 minutes just to be extra safe. So let's get into pulling the wheel off. Reach down here, there's a little lever here right towards your left side of your foot. In we go. All right, so we're gonna remove this little plastic piece here behind the shifter itself. There's one on the other side as well that we'll have to take out. Use a little plastic pry tool, and you're able to kind of poke it in there and pop it out. So. And then inside of here, you've got a 10mm bolt. That 10mm bolt, there's one on each side. All right, one 10mm bolt. And we gotta take the one out on the other side. All right, so we're gonna just pull this forward and tip it out. We've got a couple connectors here to undo, as well as one down here on the bottom. So it's got these two little orange tabs here on either side of the connector that you need to actually take and pry up to release the connector. All right, so the two main airbag connectors are undone. And we have this one here on the bottom that we need to undo. And it's just a little, or a normal connector. A little lip you pull up on. You can use a small screwdriver or something to lift up on that if you would like. All right, and there, the airbag is out. Set that somewhere safe. Now that we have the airbag off, we've got a couple things that we need to do to pull the wheel physically off the car. One of them is going to be undoing this connector that goes into the clock spring, and then it'll be undoing the main bolt that holds the wheel on. We're going to do the connector first because that gives you a little more clearance or space to get that big bolt out. It does have a safety clip on it, or a little red safety tab that needs to be pried out. And they don't like to come out super easy, so they don't want this connector to come off the car. And then it's got a little tab down here you can push up on. Okay, Now that that's out and free, you do want to make sure that your steering wheel is straight up and down and that the wheels are straight ahead. And then we're going to undo this here. This is a T50 Torx, and they're generally on there pretty good. So grab somebody to help hold the steering wheel for you if you need to. All right. You can basically thread the bolt all the way out, and then I'd suggest putting it back in just a couple turns, because you got to pull the wheel off. They're generally not stuck real good, but if you give them a little tug, they'll generally come off, and then you can unscrew the bolt the rest of the way. And then they slide off. A little wiggle, and off they are. Now, go to the bench, transfer some parts. All right, so we're going to start here with the top side and take some of these two little small screws out up here. You do want to keep track of some of these screws because they're not all exactly the same size. These smaller screws are a T10. Or a Torx 10. I'll lift this little panel out. And then down in this hole here, you've got a little tiny, or another Torx screw Torx that we have to get. And it is a T20. You will need a long T20 to reach down in there. It's pretty far down in there. Flip it over, see if we can take it out of there. And then we need to, this connector here, we need to separate. You gotta kind of pry this plastic tab away and pull up on it. So it is free. Now we will turn it over and work from the back side. I'm gonna start by undoing the paddle shifters. These are a T20. And you can just kind of pull them up and out. You can turn them over. We're going to go ahead and remove them. You've got this little gray or white plastic clip. It's the safety latch on them. So you can push that down, and then it will actually push the release tab down. We'll remove the paddle shifter from the other side. And same thing for this side. Turn it over, little plastic clip, and then push down and pull the connector out. Okay, next we're going to remove these 4 T20 screws. All right, so you'll start out here and just kind of give it a little pull and a little wiggle, and you kind of have to walk it up off the back of the switches and stuff from the front side. This will be a little hard to see, but you've got one connector right here, and you have one on the other side. It's the same, but in a teal color. We'll need to undo those next. Same thing as the paddle shifters. They got a little lock on them. That one's the easy one. This other one's a little harder to see, a little harder to get at and do anything with. Safety tab up. that is up and mostly free. This will allow you to gain access to some of the other part components in here, to be able to undo some of these other screws to release the screws from here. This steering wheel is heated, so it does have a heating element in it. We will have to disconnect this connector to take that element out of there. So okay, and then they have wire tied together, so we'll have to remove that. Next, we're going to take these smaller 2 Torx out on either, the T20 Torx out on either side. This should release the rest of the switches for the front. Okay, I'll carefully flip it back over, and then we need to remove these 2 as well. Kind of lift this up a little bit, get it to clear the steering wheel. And we should be able to take this entire assembly, harness and all, and fish it through the wheel. Alright, so we're going to reassemble this now using our new Paragon Performance carbon fiber steering wheel. So just like we took it apart, you're going to have to fish this down kind of through that bottom opening. Pick up on it so it can kind of just fall down through there. Just kind of like so. Being mindful of the harness so you don't pinch it in anything. Just make sure your harness stays in, out of the way. Reinstall the 2 T20 Torx that you took out of here. Alright, so we're going to put something down here just so we don't kind of scratch the carbon. I'm moving this stuff around. Kind of fold that out of the way. We're going to put those 4 screws back in the outer part of the switch panels here. Now we got to plug these ones that were a little hard to plug back in next. So we're going to plug this one in over here, this one, back into this down here. It's kind of difficult to plug back in because you don't have a lot of space to get your fingers in there. But you can hear it click, and then you can put the safety latch back down on it. And then we're going to do the teal colored one on the other side and the safety latch. Now we'll be ready to kind of set the black plastic rear trim piece back on there. Starting with lining up on the bottom first. Reinstall the paddle shifters. Has a little tab here on the bottom that needs to go down inside that hole. You also want to make sure you plug it in before you install the screws. And we'll do the other one in the safety clip. Same thing, tab goes down inside the hole. Alright, next ones we'll do are just reinstall the 4 around here. Okay. Flip it back over. Now this one connector is not going to have anything plugged into it. There's a can't heat carbon steering wheels. So we'll just kind of snap it back down into place. And then we'll snap the other one here back into place. Just like so. Install the trim piece that goes along the top. We've got the one last screw that drops in through there. All right, now we've got the completed steering wheel with all the components swapped over, ready to install it onto the car. Let's get to doing that. All right, so we have our completed assembled unit. Now when we go to install this, if you notice there is a flat spot. That flat spot lines up with a flat spot on here. It's only going to actually go on one way. Pretty much goes on. You just give her a little push down. Good to go. Now we're going to reinstall the nut or bolt that went in the center. Now it does have Loctite on it. I would recommend putting some new Loctite back on it because you definitely don't want this thing to come loose. So I'll put a little bit on there. Doesn't take a whole lot. Pull your wires up out of the way here. Get that screwed right on in there. Grab our ratchet again with the T50 on it. Now we're gonna actually, this does have to be torqued pretty tight. If you remember how hard it was to get it off. I'm gonna re-plug in the yellow connector here for the clock spring. Then push the red safety clip back down. Now we're ready to reinstall the airbag. And then it's just going to be reverse of what we did before. So we're going to plug the connector in that goes in the bottom here first. Just like so. And then we're going to plug in the two that go into the back of the airbag. They are colored as well as the airbag. So the colors just match up to where they, same color to same color. You just push and clip in. Just like that. We're going to rotate it back around, set it back in there like normal. We're going to retrieve the 10mm screws and reinstall those. Now we just need to hook the battery back up. And then we'll want to check some of the functions and operations on here just to make sure that that stuff still functions correctly. Before we hook the battery back up, we'll put the little plastic trim pieces back in that go in the sides. If you get confused, these are labeled right-hand and left-hand side. And they should sit flush on both sides with the back of the steering wheel when you're all complete. All right, so we're going to grab the negative cable that we took off earlier here and get that reinstalled back on there. I'm going to reinstall this plastic trim here. Making sure that that tab makes it under the plastic over there. There we go. And then reinstall these side panels. All right, so here we are. We're gonna double check the operation of our buttons here. You don't need to start the car. Just putting the car in accessory mode will work. All right, appears that button is clearing the messages out of there appropriately. Okay. Audio volume works. That one works. We'll just see if he turns the cruise control off and on. Okay. And it appears that everything works, so we are good to go. That's how you install the Paragon Performance carbon fiber steering wheel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.